The sun rose over London on a special Saturday morning. It was May 6, 2023. This was not just any day. Today, King Charles II would be crowned king. The whole city was ready for this big event. In Kensington Palace, the alarm clock rang at 5:00 a.m. Prince William opened his eyes and took a deep breath. He turned to see Kate, who was already awake. They shared a look that said more than words. Today, William's father would officially become the King of England. "Good morning," Kate said with a soft smile. "Ready for the big day?" William nodded. "As ready as we'll ever be. Let's wake the children." They had planned everything carefully. The children's clothes were laid out days ago. Each outfit had been chosen with care to match the importance of the day. George would wear a navy suit that made him look grown up. Charlotte would wear a white dress with a small flower crown. Little Louis would wear a blue outfit that matched his father's. William walked to George's room first. At 9 years old, George was starting to understand what it meant to be royal. He was already awake, sitting on the edge of his bed. "Morning, Dad," George said. His voice was quiet but clear. "Is it time?" "Yes, son," William answered. "Today is a big day for our family." George stood up straight. "I know. Grandpa becomes king, and someday you will be king. And then someday it will be my turn." William was surprised by his son's words. George was young, but he understood his future role. William sat next to him on the bed. "That's true," he said, "but that's many years away. Today, we just need to support Grandpa and be a family." In Charlotte's room, Kate was helping the 8-year-old with her hair. Charlotte sat very still, which was not easy for a child her age. "Will many people be watching us, Mummy?" Charlotte asked. "Yes, dear," Kate said as she fixed the small flower crown on Charlotte's head. "Many people from all over the world." Charlotte nodded. "I'll be on my best behavior, I promise." "I know you will," Kate said with pride. Charlotte was young, but she already knew how to act like a princess in public. The hardest part was waking up 5-year-old Louis. The youngest prince loved to sleep late. William gently shook his son's shoulder. "Louis, it's time to wake up. Today is Grandpa's special day." Louis opened one eye, then closed it again. "5 more minutes," he mumbled. William smiled. "No time for that today, young man. We have a coronation to attend." At the word coronation, Louis sat up. He had been talking about this day for weeks. He jumped out of bed with sudden energy. "Today Grandpa becomes king," Louis shouted, bouncing on his bed. "Yes, but kings need quiet in the morning," William said, trying not to laugh. "Let's get you dressed." While William helped Louis with his clothes, Kate made sure everything was packed. They would need snacks, toys, and books to keep the children busy during the long ceremony. The palace staff brought breakfast to their rooms. It was a simple meal of eggs, toast, and fruit. No one ate much. They were all too excited or nervous. As they ate, William took a moment to look at his family. Kate was beautiful in her white dress and hat. The children were growing up so fast. George sat tall in his chair, trying to act grown up. Charlotte ate neatly, taking small bites like her mother had taught her. Louis played with his food, making the toast walk across his plate. "Remember," William told the children, "today will be long. There will be lots of sitting still and being quiet. But it's an important day that you'll remember forever." "Like your wedding day?" Charlotte asked. William smiled at Kate. "Yes, like that. Some days change history. Today is one of those days." As they finished breakfast, a palisade knocked on the door. "Your Royal Highnesses, the cars are ready." It was time to leave for Westminster Abbey. The royal journey was about to begin. The royal family stepped outside Kensington Palace. 3 black cars waited for them. The morning air was cool, and the sky was clear blue. It was going to be a beautiful day for a coronation. Security guards stood all around them. These men and women in dark suits watched everything with careful eyes. Their job was to keep the royal family safe on this big day. "Look at all the cars," Louis said, pointing and jumping up and down. His excitement made everyone smile. "Yes, Louis," Kate said, holding his hand to keep him from running. "One car for us, one for the security team, and one spare, just in case." A guard opened the door of the main car. It was big and black, with special dark windows. People outside could not see in, but the family could see out. William helped George into the car first. The young prince climbed in and sat up straight, just like he had been taught. Charlotte went next, smoothing her white dress as she sat down. Kate lifted Louis and placed him in his special seat. Then William and Kate got in. "Everyone ready?" William asked, looking at his family. 3 small voices answered, "Yes, Dad." The driver started the car. Slowly, the 3-car group moved away from the palace. They joined a line of police motorcycles. This special group would take them through London to Westminster Abbey. "How long will it take to get there?" George asked. "About 30 minutes," William answered. "The roads are closed for us, but we'll go slowly so people can see us." As they drove through London, the streets were full of people. Thousands of people stood behind barriers. They waved flags and took pictures. Many held signs that said, "God save the King," or "Long live King Charles." "Why are there so many people?" Louis asked, his face pressed against the window. "They're here to celebrate Grandpa becoming king," Kate explained. "It's a very special day for our whole country." Charlotte waved at the crowds through the window. When people saw her, they cheered louder. This made her smile. "Remember to wave like this," Kate showed Louis, moving her hand slowly from side to side. The royal wave. Louis tried to copy his mother, but his wave was fast and excited. People in the crowd laughed and waved back just as excitedly. "Look," William pointed to some of the buildings they passed. "Those buildings are decorated for today." The family looked out at London. The city was dressed up for the coronation. Red, white, and blue flags hung from windows. Pictures of King Charles were everywhere. Shops had special signs saying, "Coronation Sale," or "God Save the King." "It's like the whole city is having a party," Charlotte said. "Exactly," William replied. "A coronation doesn't happen very often. The last one was for great-grandma Elizabeth, over 70 years ago." "That's older than you, Dad," George said with surprise. William laughed. "Much older. I wasn't even born then." As they got closer to Westminster Abbey, the crowds got bigger. Police officers stood every few feet. Some were on horses, watching over the people. Kate reached into a bag and took out small snacks and water bottles. "Have something to eat now," she told the children. "The ceremony will be long, and we won't be able to eat during it." The children munched on apple slices and small sandwiches. William checked his watch. They were right on time. "Soon we'll see the Abbey," he told the children. "It's a very old church. Kings and queens have been crowned there for hundreds of years." "Will we see Grandpa right away?" Louis asked with his mouth full. "No talking with food in your mouth," Kate reminded him gently. "And no, we won't see Grandpa right away. He comes in last after everyone else is seated." The car turned a corner, and suddenly they could see it. Westminster Abbey stood tall and grand against the blue sky. Its stone towers had watched over London for hundreds of years. Today, they would watch another king being crowned. "Wow," Louis whispered, food forgotten. "It's big." Even George and Charlotte were quiet, looking at the ancient building. They had seen the Abbey before, but today it looked different. Today, it was the center of the world. The car slowed as they approached the Abbey's entrance. Guards stood at attention. Red carpet covered the steps. "We're here," William said quietly. "Remember everything we practiced. This is a day you'll remember forever." The car stopped. The door opened. It was time. The car door opened, and a guard stood ready. Prince William stepped out first. He buttoned his navy jacket and turned to help his family. The noise hit them right away. Thousands of people were cheering and calling their names. "Wave to the people," William said quietly to the children as he helped Kate from the car. George came out next, blinking in the bright sunlight. He looked around and gave a small wave to the crowd. The people cheered louder when they saw him. Charlotte followed, holding her dress carefully so it wouldn't touch the ground. Her wave was perfect, just like her mother had taught her. Louis jumped out last, almost tripping in his excitement. "Louis, stay close," Kate said, taking his small hand in hers. The 5-year-old was looking everywhere at once, his eyes wide with wonder. A man in a fancy uniform walked up to them. He bowed to William and Kate. "Your Royal Highnesses, please follow me." The family walked up the red carpet toward the huge wooden doors of Westminster Abbey. Cameras flashed all around them. News reporters spoke quickly into microphones, telling the world that Prince William and his family had arrived. "It's so loud," Charlotte said, moving closer to her mother. "Just keep smiling," Kate told her. "You're doing wonderfully." Inside the Abbey, it was different. The noise of the crowd faded away. The air felt cool and smelled of flowers and old stone. The ceiling was so high that Louis had to tilt his head all the way back to see it. "Look up there," he said, pointing. Inside voice, "Louis," William reminded him gently. More men in fancy uniforms showed them where to go. They walked down a long aisle. On both sides, important people stood up as the royal family passed. These were world leaders, famous people, and other royals from different countries. Everyone was dressed in their best clothes. "There's Aunt Beatrice," Charlotte whispered, spotting their cousin among the guests. Their seats were at the front of the Abbey, near the altar. This special area was where the ceremony would happen. William led his family to their places. George sat next to his father, then Charlotte, then Kate with Louis on her lap. "When will it start?" George asked, looking around at the crowded church. "Soon," William said. "The King and Queen will arrive last." While they waited, William pointed out interesting things in the Abbey to keep the children busy. "See that chair?" he said, pointing to an old wooden seat with gold decorations. "That's the coronation chair. It's over 700 years old. Every king and queen sits in it when they are crowned." "Even great-grandma?" Charlotte asked. "Yes, even great-grandma Elizabeth sat in that chair at her coronation," William explained. Louis was getting restless. He wiggled on Kate's lap and tried to look at everything at once. "Sit still, Louis," Kate whispered. "The ceremony will be long. Save your energy." To keep him busy, Kate took a small book from her bag. It had pictures of kings and queens from the past. Louis looked at the pictures with interest. Music started to play. The huge pipe organ filled the Abbey with sound. A choir of men and boys in red and white robes began to sing. The beautiful music echoed off the stone walls. "It's starting," William said to his children. The Abbey fell silent as everyone stood up. The huge doors at the end of the aisle opened again. A group of important church leaders entered first. They wore special robes and carried old, valuable objects. These were the crown jewels, the things that would be used in the ceremony. "Look," George whispered to his siblings. "Those are the real jewels we saw in the Tower of London. But today, they'll be used for their real purpose." The music grew louder. Everyone turned to look at the doors. There was a moment of perfect silence. Then King Charles and Queen Camilla appeared at the entrance of Westminster Abbey. "There's Grandpa," Charlotte said softly. William felt a lump in his throat as he watched his father begin the slow walk down the aisle. Charles looked serious but calm. He wore a heavy red robe with white fur trim. On his head was a simple gold crown, not the big crown he would wear later. The real coronation was about to begin. King Charles walked slowly down the long aisle of Westminster Abbey. Queen Camilla was at his side. They moved with careful steps, following the plan they had practiced many times. Behind them came people carrying the royal items: the golden orb, the scepter, and other special things. The children watched with wide eyes. Even Louis was quiet now. This was the real thing, not just stories they had heard or pictures in books. "Grandpa looks different," Louis whispered to Kate. "He's dressed as a king today," Kate explained softly. "Those are special clothes that kings have worn for hundreds of years." When King Charles reached the front of the abbey, he stopped and bowed to the altar. Then he turned and sat in a special chair near the coronation chair. Everyone in the abbey sat down too. The Archbishop of Canterbury stepped forward. He was the most important church leader in England. He wore white and gold robes. In his hands, he held a large Bible. "Who comes here to be crowned?" the Archbishop asked in a loud voice. King Charles stood up. "I, Charles, come to take my rightful place as king." The Archbishop nodded. Then he turned to face all the people in the abbey. "Do you, the people of the United Kingdom and other realms, accept Charles as your king?" Everyone in the abbey answered together, "God save King Charles." The sound was so loud that Louis covered his ears. Charlotte put her finger to her lips to remind him to be quiet. George sat very still, watching everything carefully. The ceremony continued. The Archbishop read prayers. The choir sang songs. King Charles made promises to rule fairly and protect the church. William watched his father with pride. He knew how hard Charles had worked to prepare for this day. For many years, Charles had waited to be king. Now his time had come. Kate noticed that Louis was getting restless again. The little prince was trying hard to be good, but it was difficult for a 5-year-old to sit still for so long. She reached into her bag and took out a small pad of paper and a pencil. "Draw something for Grandpa," she whispered to Louis. The boy began to draw with great focus, his tongue sticking out of the corner of his mouth. A special part of the ceremony began. King Charles moved to sit in the coronation chair. 4 knights held a cloth canopy over him. The Archbishop took a small bottle of holy oil. "What's happening now?" Charlotte asked very quietly. "The anointing," William explained in a whisper. "It's the most sacred part of the ceremony. The oil is a sign that God has chosen Grandpa to be king." The children watched as the Archbishop put a drop of oil on King Charles's head, hands, and chest. This was an ancient tradition that had happened at every coronation for hundreds of years. After the anointing, it was time for the crowning. A man carried the heavy St. Edward's crown on a pillow. This crown was very old and used only for coronations. "That crown weighs more than 2 bags of sugar," William told the children. Grandpa practiced wearing a copy of it so his neck would be strong enough. The abbey grew very quiet. Everyone knew this was the most important moment. The Archbishop lifted the crown high for all to see. Then, slowly, he lowered it onto King Charles's head. The moment the crown touched the king's head, something amazing happened. From outside the abbey came the sound of trumpets and cannons firing. Inside, all the lords and ladies put on their own special crowns. The whole abbey seemed to sparkle with gold and jewels. "God save the king," everyone shouted. George, Charlotte, and Louis joined in, "God save Grandpa." William felt tears in his eyes. He reached for Kate's hand and squeezed it. This was history happening right in front of them. His father was now officially King Charles II of the United Kingdom. Louis finished his drawing and held it up. "Look," he whispered, "I drew Grandpa with his crown." Kate smiled at the colorful picture. "It's beautiful, Louis. We'll give it to him later." The coronation was only half finished. There were still many parts to come, but the most important moment had passed. Charles was now truly king. After King Charles was crowned, the ceremony continued. Now it was Queen Camilla's turn. Her part was shorter but still important. She moved to sit in a special chair next to the coronation chair. "Is Grandma Camilla going to get a crown too?" Charlotte asked quietly. "Yes, but a smaller one," William explained. "It's called the Queen Consort's crown." The Archbishop placed a beautiful crown on Camilla's head. It sparkled with diamonds. Queen Camilla smiled, and sat very straight in her chair. Louis was getting tired now. He leaned against Kate and yawned. The ceremony had already been going for more than an hour. Kate stroked his hair and let him rest against her. Even George and Charlotte were starting to fidget a little. "Not much longer," Kate whispered to them. "You're all doing so well." The next part of the ceremony was very old and special. King Charles, wearing his heavy crown, moved to a grand throne. This was not the same as the coronation chair. This throne was for the king to sit on after being crowned. Once King Charles sat on the throne, something important happened. Prince William stood up. It was his turn to be part of the ceremony. "Dad's going now," George said, watching his father walk toward the king. William walked slowly to stand before his father. He bowed deeply. Then he knelt on one knee. This was the moment of homage, when William would promise to be loyal to the king. William placed his hands between his father's hands. Then he spoke words that princes had said to new kings for hundreds of years. "I, William, Prince of Wales, become your liege man of life and limb, and earthly worship. Faith and truth will I bear unto you, to live and die against all manner of folks. So help me God." When William finished speaking, he stood up. Then he did something that was not in the old ceremony. He leaned forward and kissed his father on the cheek. It was a son's kiss for his father on this big day. King Charles smiled at William. For a moment, they were not just king and prince. They were father and son. Many people in the abbey had tears in their eyes when they saw this. William returned to his seat. George looked at his father with new understanding. Someday, it would be William on that throne, and George would be the one kneeling. "You did well, Dad," George whispered when William sat down. "Thank you, son," William replied, putting his arm around George's shoulders. The ceremony continued with more prayers and songs. Kate helped Louis sit up when he needed to see something important. Charlotte watched Queen Camilla, studying how she sat and held her hands. George kept his eyes on his father and grandfather, thinking about the future. After the homage, the Archbishop gave King Charles and Queen Camilla special cups to drink from. These gold cups were very old. Kings and queens had used them for hundreds of years. Then King Charles and Queen Camilla went to a private area of the abbey called St. Edward's Chapel. There, helpers changed the king's heavy crown for a lighter one called the imperial state crown. They also changed his heavy robe for a purple one. While they waited, music played in the abbey. William talked quietly to his children. "After this, we will walk out in a procession," he explained. "Then we'll go to Buckingham Palace for pictures on the balcony." "Will there be more sitting still?" Louis asked with a small frown. Kate smiled. "No, Louis. After this, you can move around a bit more, but you still need to behave like a prince." Louis nodded, but his feet swung under his chair. He was ready for the sitting part to be over. Charlotte looked around the abbey. "Everyone is looking at us," she whispered. "Yes," Kate said. "People are interested in you three. They want to see how the young princes and princess behave at such an important event." "I'm being good," Louis said proudly. "Yes, you are," William agreed. "All three of you are making us very proud today." George sat up a little straighter when he heard this. Charlotte smiled. Even Louis tried to sit still. After about 10 minutes, King Charles and Queen Camilla returned. The king now wore the lighter crown and purple robe. He looked more comfortable. Everyone in the abbey stood up as music began to play again. It was time for the final part of the ceremony. The coronation was almost complete. Music filled Westminster Abbey as the ceremony moved toward its end. The choir sang beautiful songs that echoed off the old stone walls. King Charles and Queen Camilla stood before the altar, ready for the final parts of the coronation. The Archbishop gave the king 2 more special items. First was a golden ball called the orb. It had a cross on top and stood for the Christian world. Next was a scepter, a fancy stick that showed the king's power to rule. "Why does Grandpa need all these things?" Louis whispered to Kate. Each one means something important about being king, Kate explained quietly. The crown for his authority, the orb for the world he helps look after, and the scepter for his power to make rules. Louis nodded, though he didn't fully understand. He was more interested in the shiny gold objects than their meanings. With the crown on his head and holding the orb and scepter, King Charles turned to face everyone. The abbey was completely silent. This was how a fully crowned king looked. It was a picture that would be in history books forever. The archbishop spoke final prayers. Then the choir began to sing "God Save the King." Everyone in the abbey joined in. William sang proudly. Kate helped the children follow along with the words. That's the same tune as the song we sing at school, Charlotte realized. Yes, but now the words are different because we have a king, not a queen, George explained to his sister. When the song ended, drums began to beat. Trumpets played a happy tune. King Charles and Queen Camilla started walking down the aisle toward the door. They moved slowly because the king's robes were heavy, and the crown had to stay balanced on his head. Next came important church people, then other royal family members. Finally, it was time for William, Kate, and their children to join the procession. Remember to walk slowly and keep in line, William reminded the children. George, you first, then Charlotte, then Louis with Mummy. They stepped into the aisle. Hundreds of eyes watched them. Cameras flashed. George walked tall and straight like his father. Charlotte kept her eyes forward, and her hands clasped in front. Louis held Kate's hand and tried very hard not to skip or run. As they walked down the aisle, people smiled at the children. Some older ladies wiped tears from their eyes. These young royals were the future of the monarchy. Someday, George would be the one wearing the crown. Outside the abbey, the noise hit them like a wave. Thousands of people cheered and waved flags. The bells of Westminster Abbey rang loudly. In the distance, they could hear cannons firing in salute to the new king. It's so loud, Louis said, covering his ears. William leaned down to speak to his youngest son. This is how people show they're happy for Grandpa. They're celebrating. The royal family moved toward the waiting carriages. King Charles and Queen Camilla were already in the first one, a beautiful golden carriage pulled by 8 white horses. For the children, this was the exciting part. They would ride in their own carriage back to Buckingham Palace. Can we wave to the people? Charlotte asked. Yes, that's exactly what you should do, Kate answered with a smile. Their carriage was smaller than the king's, but still very fancy. It had soft red seats and big windows so people could see them. A footman helped them climb in. William and Kate sat facing forward, with the children between them. Remember the royal wave, Kate reminded them. Not too fast, not too high. The carriage began to move. It joined the long procession of soldiers, horses, and royal cars. The route would take them through the center of London, past many famous places. Louis bounced on his seat with excitement. This is much better than sitting in the abbey. William and Kate laughed. Even George and Charlotte relaxed now. The hard part was over. Now they could enjoy the celebration. As their carriage rolled down the street, people cheered for them. Many called out the children's names. Some held signs that said, "Future King George," or "We love Princess Charlotte," or "Prince Louis for President." The last one made William chuckle. The children waved and waved until their arms got tired. Louis waved with both hands, forgetting all about the royal wave he had been taught. The people loved it. They laughed and waved back just as excitedly. "Look at all the flags," Charlotte said, pointing to the buildings they passed. Every window and rooftop seemed to have red, white, and blue decorations. "The whole country is celebrating today," William told his children. "This is a day everyone will remember." The royal carriage moved slowly through the streets of London. Rain had been expected, but the sky was clear blue. The sun made the gold on the carriages shine brightly. It was as if even the weather was celebrating King Charles's coronation. "Look at the soldiers." Louis pointed to the lines of men in red coats and tall black hats who stood along the road. Those of the king's guards, William explained. They're keeping everyone safe today. The procession followed a route that had been planned months ago. From Westminster Abbey, they traveled along Whitehall, then through Trafalgar Square with its huge lion statues. Next, they went down the Mall, a wide road that led straight to Buckingham Palace. All along the way, people stood 10 or 20 deep behind barriers. Many had camped out all night to get a good spot. They waved flags and took pictures with their phones. When they saw the children's carriage, they cheered extra loudly. "They're so happy to see us," Charlotte said, surprised by all the attention. "People love to see you three," Kate told her. "You give them hope for the future." George, who was now 9 years old, understood what his mother meant. Someday, many years from now, he would be king. These people would be his people. The thought made him sit up a little straighter and wave with extra care. In the carriage, William handed out small water bottles to the children. The day had been long, and they were all getting thirsty. "Are we almost there?" Louis asked after taking a big drink. "Look ahead," William said, pointing. "You can see Buckingham Palace now." The huge palace came into view at the end of the mall. Its cream-colored walls and many windows looked golden in the afternoon sun. The royal standard flag flew from the roof, showing that the king was now officially in residence. "That's where we'll stand on the balcony," Kate said, just like it, trooping the color. The children perked up at this news. Standing on the famous balcony was one of their favorite royal duties. From there, they could see thousands of people and watch planes fly overhead. As the carriage approached the palace gates, the crowds grew even bigger and louder. Police officers on horses kept everyone in order. The gates opened, and the procession entered the palace grounds. In the courtyard, helpers waited to assist everyone. The carriage stopped, and a footman opened the door. William stepped out first, then helped Kate and the children. "Stand together for the photographers," Kate said quietly to the children. Cameras clicked as the family posed briefly at the bottom of the palace steps. George stood tall on one side of his father. Charlotte stood beside her mother with perfect posture. Louis, getting tired now, leaned against Kate's side. Inside the palace, staff members greeted them with small bows and curtsies. The main hall was busy with people coming in from the procession. Ladies in beautiful dresses and men in military uniforms moved toward the staterooms. "This way," William said, leading his family up the grand staircase. They went to a private room where they could rest for a few minutes before the balcony appearance. Trays of small sandwiches and cakes waited for them, along with fruit juice for the children and tea for the adults. "I'm hungry," Louis announced, reaching for a cake. "Sandwich first, then cake," Kate said, giving him a small chicken sandwich. Charlotte carefully selected a cucumber sandwich, trying not to get crumbs on her white dress. George took 2 sandwiches and ate them quickly. The family had barely eaten all day, and everyone was hungry. William checked his watch. "We have 20 minutes before we need to join the king and queen on the balcony." "Can I loosen my tie?" George asked. The formal clothes were getting uncomfortable after so many hours. "Yes, but just for now," William said, loosening his own tie as well. "We'll fix everything before going out." Kate helped Louis wash his hands and face. Charlotte checked her hair in a mirror. They all needed to look perfect for the balcony appearance, their last public duty of the day. A palisade knocked on the door. 10 minutes until the balcony, Your Royal Highnesses." William nodded. "Thank you. We'll be ready." The children finished their snacks. Kate helped them tidy up. William fixed George's tie and straightened Louis's jacket. Soon, they were ready for their final appearance. "Remember," William told the children, "this is the moment everyone has been waiting for. It's when the king and queen show themselves to the people for the first time since the crowning." The royal family walked through the grand hallways of Buckingham Palace. Paintings of kings and queens from the past hung on the walls. Soft red carpets covered the floors. Guards stood still as statues at each doorway. "This way to the balcony room," said a palace worker, showing them the path. They entered a large room with tall windows that opened onto the famous balcony. King Charles and Queen Camilla were already there, talking quietly. The king had changed his heavy crown for a lighter one. He looked tired but happy. "Grandpa," Louis called out, running to the king. King Charles turned with a warm smile. Even on this most formal day, he was still a grandfather. He bent down to hug Louis, being careful not to let his crown fall. "Were you good during the ceremony?" the king asked his youngest grandson. "Very good," Louis said proudly. "I only wiggled a little bit." The adults laughed. Charles greeted George and Charlotte too, praising them for their perfect behavior. Then he turned to William. "Well done today, son," the king said, putting his hand on William's shoulder. "Thank you, Your Majesty," William replied, using the formal title that he would now call his father in public. A palace official checked his watch. 2 minutes until the balcony appearance, Your Majesty." Everyone moved into position. They could hear the huge crowd outside, chanting, "We want the king." "Remember," Kate told the children, "stand still, smile, and wave. This is a big moment for Grandpa." Louis looked nervous. "There are so many people." "Just stay between Mummy and me," William said. "We'll be right there with you." The tall glass doors opened. King Charles and Queen Camilla stepped out first. The roar from the crowd was like a giant wave of sound. William and Kate followed, with their 3 children between them. The balcony of Buckingham Palace was not very big, but it was the most famous balcony in the world. From here, kings and queens had greeted their people for over 100 years. Today, 3 generations of the royal family stood together. George looked out at the amazing sight. The mall was filled with people as far as he could see. Thousands and thousands of faces looked up at them. Flags waved everywhere. Charlotte waved gracefully, copying her mother's movements. Louis's eyes grew wide at the huge crowd. He gave a big smile and waved with both hands, making the people cheer even louder. King Charles raised his hand in greeting. The crowds roared their approval for their new king. Beside him, Queen Camilla smiled and waved. "Listen," William said to his children. The crowd was singing "God Save the King." The sound of thousands of voices filled the air. Many people had tears in their eyes as they sang for their new king. Suddenly, the sound of airplanes filled the sky. The Royal Air Force was doing a special flyover for the coronation. Jets zoomed overhead, leaving trails of red, white, and blue smoke behind them, the colors of the British flag. "Look up," Kate told the children. The family tilted their heads to watch the planes. Louis clapped his hands with excitement. Even George and Charlotte forgot their royal manners for a moment, pointing and smiling at the colorful display. The planes flew in a special pattern, forming the number 70 in the sky. This was to honor the 70-year reign of Queen Elizabeth II, who had died the year before. King Charles looked up at the tribute to his mother. For a moment, his face showed his feelings. He missed her, especially today. William noticed and moved slightly closer to his father, showing his support. The flyover ended with the famous red arrows jets streaming colorful smoke across the London sky. The crowd cheered and waved their flags even more. The royal family stood on the balcony for exactly 6 minutes. Each minute had been planned long ago. They waved to the north, south, east, and west, making sure everyone in the crowd could see them. Finally, it was time to go back inside. King Charles gave one last wave to his people. Then he turned to lead his family back through the glass doors. Inside, away from the public eye, the family relaxed. Louis jumped up and down, full of excitement about the planes. Charlotte told Queen Camilla how pretty the smoke colors were. George stood quietly next to his father, thinking about everything he had seen. "You all did wonderfully," Kate told her children. "I'm very proud of you." But the day was not over yet. There was still one more important event to come. After the balcony appearance, the royal family moved to the palace's grand ballroom. This huge room was set up for official coronation photographs. Fancy chairs were arranged in front of a gold background. Cameras and lights were ready. More pictures? Louis asked with a small frown. He was getting very tired now. Just a few more, Kate promised. Then we can rest. The royal photographer bowed to King Charles. We are ready for you, Your Majesty. First, the king and queen sat alone for their official portrait. Charles wore his crown and held the scepter. Camilla sat beside him in her crown too. The photographer took many pictures to make sure he got the perfect one. Next came family groups. King Charles and Queen Camilla sat in the middle chairs. William and Kate stood behind them. The children stood in front, with George next to his grandfather, Charlotte in the middle, and Louis next to his grandmother. Stand very still, the photographer said. This picture will be in history books forever. The thought made the children try extra hard. Even Louis managed to stand still and smile. The camera clicked many times. Excellent, the photographer said. Now, could we have just the king with Prince William and Prince George, please? This was a special picture. 3 generations who would all be king someday. Charles sat in his chair. William stood behind his right shoulder. George stood by his grandfather's knee. The future of the monarchy, someone whispered as the photos were taken. George felt the weight of those words. He looked at his father and grandfather, both so tall and sure of themselves. Someday he would need to be like them. After the formal photos, King Charles asked for a surprise picture. I want one with just my grandchildren, he said. And I'll take off the crown for this one. The king carefully removed his heavy crown and handed it to an aide. Then he sat in a regular chair with George, Charlotte, and Louis gathered around him. For this picture, they didn't need to be perfect. The king told them a silly joke that made them all laugh. The photographer caught that moment. The real smiles, the real connection between grandfather and grandchildren. Once the photos were done, it was finally time for the royal family to rest. They went to private rooms in the palace where they could change out of their formal clothes. Can I take off these tight shoes now? Louis asked as soon as they were alone. Yes, you can, Kate said with a smile. You've earned it. The children changed into comfortable clothes. Palace staff brought them a proper meal: chicken, vegetables, and ice cream for dessert. They ate hungrily after the long day. William looked at his watch. It's nearly 7 o'clock. We've been up since 5 this morning. Outside the palace, the celebrations continued. Parties were happening all over London and across the country. Fireworks would light up the sky later. But inside, the royal family was having their own quiet time together. After dinner, they gathered in a sitting room to watch some of the TV coverage of the day. It felt strange to see themselves on television. The children laughed when they spotted themselves walking into the abbey or riding in the carriage. You all did so well today, William told his children. You are part of history now. People will remember this coronation for hundreds of years. Louis was falling asleep on the sofa, his head on Kate's lap. Charlotte leaned against William's side, tired but still watching the TV with interest. George sat up, still taking everything in. What was your favorite part of the day? Kate asked the children. The planes, Louis mumbled sleepily. The music in the abbey, Charlotte said. It was so beautiful. George thought for a moment. The moment when Dad and Grandpa looked at each other during the homage. I could see how much you both cared about each other. William smiled at his son's thoughtful answer. That was my favorite part too. As night fell over London, the royal family was together, tired but happy. They had done their part in this ancient ceremony. The new reign of King Charles II had officially begun. And someday, many years in the future, it would be William's turn, and then George's. The story of the monarchy would continue, linking past, present, and future together. The royal journey to the coronation was over. But for Prince William, Kate, and their children, the journey of serving their country was just beginning. Today had been a big step on that long road, a day they would remember for the rest of their lives.